Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten.
On that shelf.
Boom. Before we talk about what we're going to talk about, I all week was worried I wasn't going to remember how to do that back and forth. I was like, wait, how does it go again? I was like, do I say Spoiled Rotten? Does he say Spoiled Rotten? I'm glad it just flowed. Anyway, I genuinely was worried.
Really? All week? Why?
I don't know. I just was like, wait, how does it go again? It's just one of those things, like you just overthink something you just do naturally.
Yeah, like that time I forgot how to sit down.
Yeah. And that time I forgot to stand up. I didn't remember how to get up. I was high, but I was also just like, wait, what do I do to get up? Oh no. Yeah. Anyway,
we forgot how to do the intro, but not what we're talking about, which is Civil War.
Yeah, Captain America's third movie, and I feel like I just have to double down on feeling like Captain America has the best superhero trilogy. I feel like not a lot of people think that, but I really feel like his movies just keep getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's other superheroes that have like better movies in their trilogies, but not necessarily as a whole a trilogy that actually gets better as it goes along.
Yeah.
But yeah, this I did not waver on my thoughts about this movie. It is still, up until this point, we are rewatching everything, but up until this rewatch, it is still my favorite MCU movie.
Yeah.
I think another thing that obviously we don't talk about it on this show a lot, but it is something that gets talked about, which is people who think this isn't real cinema and that it's just people punching themselves in tights and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't think this is the most deep movie they've done. I think there's, when you start talking about colonialism, like the Thor stuff, I think even on this rewatch, before we even get to Ragnarok, which is so specifically about it, I think Thor has sprinkled that kind of stuff in there already. But just on the level of like, I don't think we get to see a lot of movies where, in this case, I'll just say Black people. There's, I think, 3 or 4 Black characters that actually have a point of view in this movie, and they're not just lumped together. They're not just, I don't see that in the other cinema. Like it's always just white people that get to have different opinions and actually be fleshed out characters. I still think that, yeah, they kind of use Falcon as a punchline, but like he gets his moments in this to truly like state what he's about and what he cares about. Same as War Machine, same as T'Challa, obviously, same as T'Chaka, even though T'Chaka obviously has shortened screen time. Yeah, like I was watching it with Malcolm. I was like, wow, this is so nice to like watch a movie where there's like 3 Black superheroes. And it's not like they're grouped together. They're not on the same side. They actually have different opinions, and just the ability for a movie to give an experience like that, where you actually don't use Black people as a monolith. Like it's not like, oh, we got to go to the hood to like get some backup. They're actually a part of it. And like the first time you see who are essentially the sidekicks, Don Cheadle and Anthony Mackie, the first time you see them, they are just talking to each other about how they feel about the Sokovia Accords. It's not like, well, I'm backing my boy and I'm back. Like you see their opinions first about like, no, this is what needs to happen. So I just think the Marvel movies do it. We even thought about it in Suicide Squad as well, like that they are exploring these different meaningful ideas and doing it diversely. It isn't just, well, they're the Black friends. I mean, as I said, yes, War Machine and Falcon are the Black friends, but the first time you meet them in this movie for any meaningful period of time is them talking to each other about how they feel and not just being like, hey brother, what do you think? Like, it's just like, no, they have distinct points of view and get to share those points of view.
Yeah, it's a movie where they're not making the black characters forcing them into their own subculture. Like they're full on integrated within everything that's happening here. And like you said, they get the first opinions laid out in front of them, and how respected and heard they are. Like, when I always think of this, when Captain America, I forget the response he gives, but this is immediately after Theodore Ross gives them the Sokovia Accords, and like Cap says something, they start doing their debate scene, which is one of the scenes I love most in this movie. What Don Cheadle replies to Cap, the look on his face, he doesn't dismiss it. He just like, yep, that's a point I hadn't considered yet. Like when he's like, I'm sorry, Cap, but that's dangerously arrogant. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, that's a very valid point from this character to bring up to Cap. And like, he just doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't go, but he doesn't power over it. He just like, yep, he takes it and considers it.
Yeah. And I think that's what I specifically like about this movie, like just divorcing it from how Black people are portrayed, is that in this movie, everybody has their, like, they have a specific arc they're going on, like, and it is about like for me, it really did crystallize in Don, like, War Machine's thing of like, hey, I flew like 139 missions, each one of them could have been my last. He's like, and this hasn't changed my mind about, like, and it's like, so like, of these characters, who's willing to like stick to doing the right thing, or what they think is the right thing? Like who's sticking to the guns? And like, we know for Natasha, it's like, I want my family, so she has multiple times of being like, I don't care how we stay together, I think it's just more important that we stay together. Like, like that's the right thing for her, is that they stay a family. Obviously Tony is like, I have so much guilt about the destruction we've done, like the right thing for us to do is be accountable for it, and like have someone in place to tell us like when we're out of line. That, I think that was the thing, because when Robert Downey Jr. got announced, because it was kind of like, oh yeah, Iron Man 3 is kind of his last thing, and then he gets announced as the villain of Captain America 3. I think everyone's like, oh, okay, it's Civil War. But when we first watched this movie, I think we both like that you could come away being Team Iron Man. You didn't have to feel like you were like having a hot take if you picked one side or the other. They respected both sides.
This isn't like saying something like, I don't think Killmonger is wrong, which is obviously not thought through, because when you're advocating for that kind of like, oh, we're just going to blanket kill a whole bunch of people, like genocide, basically. It's always going to be wrong, no matter what. Like when you're like, Thanos had his point, I'm like, you gotta, even in What If, they make fun of it. It's like, so it's basically genocide. Even the characters, and when follow through on the accountability side of things, I love the fact that you said that, because no team gets it worse than Cap's team, where Falcon, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Wanda, they're all locked up in the raft afterwards. Like that, there was no other end game for those characters. There's no other plan. They were supposed to be there indefinitely. That was it. That was literally it. Because the next time you see Cap in Infinity War, is they reveal, like, we've been on the run for 2 years. This has not been fun. Like, we forget that part, but it's like they're wanted criminals. Like, it's crazy. The consequences here, they're all willing to follow through with it. And Don Cheadle's got a physical injury, but everyone had their own kind of
everyone took a loss on this. But that, and again, that's what I like about this movie. It's what I'm, as we talked, I already kind of mentioned Ragnarok, you've mentioned Black Panther. These movies where like the world changes, it's not just another outing. Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, like this was just another fun Captain America adventure. Like, I would argue that all three Captain America movies shift what we know the MCU to be. Like, maybe the first one is more shifting what he knows his world to be, but it's still something that changes his world. It has a fundamental shift for him, because now he's in 2012. Like, that's a big deal for someone who was just in the 40s. And then the second one, he takes down Shield. That is a big shift again for his world, but for us as the viewers to be like, wow, so they just took out a staple of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And then this one is, we got rid of the Avengers, and it isn't solved realistically until Endgame. And even then, after Endgame, the next movie is kind of like, wait, is there an Avengers? We don't even know. So this movie has consequences. This movie changed things, and it pushed people to actually like consider their actions. And I think that is worthy of something. Like, it's not just, oh yeah, they fought each other in an airport. I think that's why this is my favorite, because it is a movie where like things fundamentally change. They didn't just put the bad guy in jail and then give each other high fives.
Yeah, the day wasn't saved. Not everything went back to normal. Things had severe consequences. Like Zemo said, it's like an empire that gets defeated by enemies can rise again, but empire that falls from within, that's broken forever. And yeah, this is legitimately broken. It's legitimately broken. And there's the consequences there are just like, holy shit, what does this mean? Does this mean there's an Avengers anymore? Is the world safe? What if there's another invasion of something like that? What will happen? Like, if Cap comes back to fight, will the US Army be like, okay, there's our guy, we got to cuff him right away and just ignore the fact that he's trying to help us? You know, like all that kind of stuff. Like, what would happen? This movie has crazy consequences, and not a lot of people see it that way, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what the thing is. We were talking about all this serious stuff, and then while the credits were like the Marvel like scroll was happening, I was like, holy fuck, yeah, like this is the movie where I'm gonna see Spider-Man for the first time. Oh shit, yeah, like there's gonna be Black Panther. Like, I was excited because it felt like a real comic book movie, like, or comic book on the screen, and in the sense of like they're actually going to interact with each other. This isn't just like, well, we can't call this person because of the like, no, like they are going to intersect with each other, and this is going to be great. I even got excited at one point where I'm like, oh right, like this is the scene where like Iron Man's gonna show up and talk to the class about this. I'm like, yeah, like I was just happy to like see them like fold people back in. And as I said, everyone feels like they've got a very, if not just one powerful scene, like a very strong point of view throughout. And yes, some of them align, but everyone has like what they want out of this situation. No one's kind of like, and again, another reason this is one of my favorites. It is my favorite use of Hawkeye. Like, I don't think anything ever comes as close to me liking Hawkeye as how effectively he gets into the compound and like gets Wanda to be like, all right, I'm gonna jump in here. I like him in the airport having a time, but like especially I shot 18, I like sunk 18. It was kind of boring. But then you get to the raft where he's like really giving Tony the gears, and I'm like, this is like, that is more exciting to me to watch him like actually push back against Tony. And so like, la, watch out everybody, he's the future. And I was like, yeah, like this is great stuff. Yeah. And I don't think they've ever, and this isn't to put down other times Hawkeye was in, but like this has always been my favorite use of Hawkeye, and I felt even better about it this time, having just watched the Hawkeye show. I was just like, yeah, like this is great, a great use of Hawkeye.
I'm glad you brought up the raft and the things he says, like when he's clapping, Tony's there and he's like, the futurist is here, he can do no harm. It's just like, it is, you're right, it's the personality of Hawkeye that I really, really come to enjoy, because he gets so sidelined in his own character development that you're like, what is the part that you really like about him? And he's like, oh, right, he's that ninja. He's the guy operating in the back. He's got backup plans. He's got that aspect that we like about Batman. He's like, yeah, he's a human and he has to like outthink people. He's got to do that kind of stuff. He's got those things that we like, but he never gets the spotlight. So we don't really see it fully fleshed out.
For me, when it does, it feels like it's slowing things down, as opposed to this one where I'm like, every use of him is great. I wouldn't cut a single thing of Hawkeye in this. I'm not saying I want more. I'm just saying like he was perfectly used in this, and I feel like it's in different ways too. It wasn't just like, oh, like they need someone to be cool, just use him again. It's like, no, he gets to be an emotion. He has an emotional thing with Wanda. He gets to be cool while he fights and does stuff. and then he gets to actually be like, fuck you, Tony, like we are your friends. You
Mhm.
knew we were going to get put somewhere. You can say, oh, I didn't know they were going to put you in the raft, but you knew they were putting us somewhere,
Yeah.
and you still let this happen. Like, and then I still love what he says, like, hey, watch your back around this guy, he might break it, just
Mhm.
because obviously War Machine's back is just broke, like he
Mhm.
can't walk anywhere. It's just like I love it. I think that it's the best use of Hawkeye ever.
Yeah, that scene cuts deep, especially when and this is what Scott Lang is obviously the butt of the joke. He's like, well, Pym was right to say never to trust a Stark. He's like, who are you? It's just like, it's like, come on.
I
dude.
think it's funny, but also it's like, yeah, why would he know who you are? You had a mask on.
Yeah,
When you like, you would just be like, I still don't know who you are.
yeah. You operated in secrecy the entire time. Like,
Yeah.
I legit, you had one trick. Like, you're the guy that got big. Like, cool, but like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah, I still really like the airport scene. I'm not trying to downplay it. It's just the raft really worked for me, specifically Falcon, because as I was saying, like, yeah, he's got his jokes at the beginning, like, hey, pet Red Wing or whatever, he's having a good time. But also you see he's very competent during the actual fighting. He's not like
Oh, yeah.
a goof. And then just the way he's like, oh, you're the good cop now, you're gonna have to go Mark Furman on my ass if you want any information. I'm just like, good for you, man. Like,
Yeah.
you're finally. And again, he sticks to what he thinks is the right thing, which is helping Steve. And it does make me appreciate Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the show, more, because it's like that's him moving on from trying to be in service to Steve.
Yep.
And be in service to himself.
Yeah.
But
He's
obviously
actively
for
not
this,
playing that backup character anymore.
Yeah.
That's sidekick. He's being like, no, I'm coming in the spotlight.
right.
And
But
it's
in this movie,
glorious.
yeah, he has his own point of view.
Yep.
That's why I'm saying he might, and I don't think I don't think he's written weak. It's just he is like, it's just like he's not as self-motivated as War Machine and T'Challa, for obvious reasons. Like,
Yeah.
he's still playing the like, yeah, I'm Cap's guy. I just like that the first time he's talking with War Machine, I always hate saying Rhodey. Like, with every time he's talking with War Machine, it's kind of like, it is just like, yeah, like he has his own point of view on this. He isn't saying it because he thinks that's what Steve would say.
Right.
At least that's how it's presented in that conversation. And he's still trying to be like, all right, I have new information now. Tony legitimately just said he's sorry for something. Tony is actively trying to make things better. I'm not going to be stubborn right now. I'm going to like help him. But yeah, I think that the movie does also do a good job of faking you out of thinking like they're going to have to go fight a bunch of super soldiers. Like, obviously I know they won't, but I think the movie does a really good job of planting that seed, and just the way people are performing, that you're like, yeah, man, like Iron Man has to go there and stop those super soldiers or else Steve's done for. And I've heard that the complaint, like, well, how does Zemo know they're all going to show up there? I'm like, that's what's good about his plan, is they have to show. There's like 5 reasons why they would show up there. It doesn't have to be specifically why he wants them to show up there, but one, Tony is going to want to like either track Steve down and collect him so he can bring him back in, or he will be like, I gotta go help my friend. Like, he's going to go there. I think Zemo can reasonably be like, yeah, he'll go to Steve to help him, or to like reprimand him, but he's gonna go there. He's not gonna just let Steve go off and do his own thing.
Entirely. Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, when people make that argument, I'm like, that's what's being questioned out of Zemo's plan. Like, Zemo's plan was so throughout the whole movie, and if you don't really pay attention to it, it can really, really just like you can miss everything so quickly with what Zemo does, right? For people to question like, oh, how would you know they would be there? It doesn't matter. Like, they needed to be there. He didn't know who would be there. Totally. He didn't know that T'Challa would be there. He obviously didn't plan that because he planned to off himself, right? He didn't know if like Iron Man was going to come with anyone, but it didn't matter because the whole point of the plan was that Iron Man just needed to know that bit of information and then confront Steve. Like, Even if Iron Man just came alone and just got that tape to watch alone, they would have done the same thing.
Yes,
he would have tracked
exactly.
down He would have tracked down Captain America. Right.
And
There would have been
he
a
would have been
way.
like, I'm not letting those guys get away. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's just that in the heat of the moment, right there and then, the emotions are high. They're the three of them are thinking, yeah, we're gonna fight 5 super soldiers that are like Hydra's deadliest.
Mhm.
You know, that's the thing that I keep forgetting about it is like, yeah, they're the deadliest.
Yeah, it's like they
And-
were the deadliest before they had the superhero.
Yeah,
like, the
highest
super
kill
soldiers.
counts.
Yeah.
And like it showed you like the difference between Bucky and them. It's like, okay, Bucky, when he was Winter Soldier, he could still follow commands versus like those
Mhm, they
Hydra
can't
guys
control
were
them.
like, no, bloodthirst. It just like sword lust, all of it. Just wanted to kill. That's it. So it's crazy to think that like that was what they were walking into. And then the funny thing is now, knowing what we know about these shows, like recognizing what a big setup Civil War is for so many future movies, right? Like No Way Home. It sets up the barf thing. It's like even like you watch the
Far
Captain,
From Home. Yeah.
Far From Home. Sorry, Far From Home. You watch Bucky and Falcon together, and you're like, this is great chemistry together. That just in the car, it's like, can you move up? And the Falcon's like, no.
Or like
It's the
also what I
best.
like about the best MCU fights. I know people are like, oh, whatever, it's just ones and zeros bash each other. They're like, there's a moment when Spider-Man's gonna take out Falcon and Winter Soldier just sacrifices his body so that it's not as much of an impact for Sam. Just the kind of character development that's happening even while they're fighting. Like I always point to in Avengers when Tony and Steve finally work together and they bounce he bounced Iron Man's blast off of Steve's shield to get it's like, yeah, like they're learning to work together. They're not and I understand that people can just be like, well, whatever, let's just fight choreography. But I'm like, this is film. That is part of it. You use different languages to get things across. Like in a musical,
Exactly.
sure, you can not be on board with why people break out into song, but that is the language of that film in terms of they have reached such heights of emotion that just talking isn't going to suit them right now. They have to sing, and that's going to bring it out, and that's where you learn stuff. Same with the dancing in musicals. You can get a lot across, and I feel like again, not in every movie, but in the better ones, the fight choreography also helps tell a story and get things across. When we get to Black Panther, I feel like even the fight choreography in that is tied to that thing of just because something's working doesn't mean you can't improve on it. Like a moment like that where it's like, sure, they can bicker, but there is love there. Like, and obviously for them, it's both like, well, we both obviously see how great Steve is and how the impact he's had on our lives. And for him to just like take that hit for Sam says something.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting that people would say like, oh, it's just a fight scene and dismiss it like that, right? When so many, let's talk about kung fu movies. Like every quintessential final showdown of a kung fu movie has one moment where they're like, I remember this one technique or something like that shows growth.
Yes.
Right. It's just like, okay, either let's say calm your heartbeat, control your energy, get the like focus your energy, whatever. That's something that I had to remember from like the beginning of the movie usually. So here, for a character to be like, I hate you in the scene beforehand, and then all of a sudden to throw his body to take a hit, it says very, very, very big volumes of like, I could say whatever I want, but at the end of the day, like
they're soldiers, and they show their love through that combat like that way. Yeah,
we're fighting shoulder to shoulder, and I forget which movie we watched where it's like, oh right, it was the Peacemaker thing where Harcourt was like, what's the difference? It's like, because they're fighting shoulder to shoulder. Like that's the difference, like between what we do and what they do. We fight together and they fight for themselves, right? You see that here, and it is wonderful. Like it's legit a team, even though you can be like, yeah, you annoy me a little bit.
Yeah,
cool, whatever.
Also, I love Spider-Man and Black Panther in this. I feel like these are great
Yes.
introductions to them.
Mhm.
Like, and because yeah, that adds to my giddiness. Like rewatching the movie, I'm like, man, I like. There's gonna be a part where we just focus on Peter and Aunt May before we even see him in the suit. There's gonna be a part where we watch
Yep.
T'Challa and T'Chaka, and you right away understand the bond he has with his dad, because that is a very important part of his solo movie, just the same way Aunt May is such an important part of Peter's journey in
Yep.
the MCU. Like even the idea that they gave you those very key supporting characters for these people. I mean, we're not going to see any more of T'Challa, but
Well, I
moving
mean,
forward, you
flashbacks,
would-
but yeah, only in flashbacks.
I don't know if they're going to do that, because, or unless they're just going to show old footage. I don't know that they're going to do more T'Challa.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I see.
I wasn't saying T'Challa. We're not going to see anymore.
Yeah, because I keep
Yeah.
forgetting like T'Chaka and T'Challa. I just keep forgetting the names.
Yeah, because we could.
But
see more
Chadwick
T'Chaka.
is
Chadwick
you're
is dead.
talking about
I
Chadwick.
mean,
Okay.
Ross is dead too.
Yeah,
William Hurt.
William Hurt.
Like,
He passed.
I don't know when anyone's going to hear this,
Rip.
but when we
Yeah.
were, as of recording, he's passed away like a week or two ago.
Yep.
But yeah. So, but I think that was important, the care that was taken for this movie, that no
Yes.
one feels like they're just being slotted in. There's
Yeah.
a very good reason to have Black Panther in this movie.
Yes. And what I like about this,
yeah, sorry, continue.
sorry. So what I like about this too is like the Black Panther we get here is very much a similar Black Panther that we have going into his own solo movie. And that's where it's like, okay, this is the great deal about this, because I remember distinctly during production, Ryan Coogler being consulted in on like every Black Panther scene or something like that to be like, no, okay, like this is how we're going to handle this. And this is we're going to handle this franchise. Like that's that collaborative stuff that I really, really enjoy about like,
Mhm.
this is how we're going to handle this. Because basically here, whatever he does here, he has to follow through with, right? It's not like this isn't going to be like a character like Wanda, where it's like, yeah, let's start you off with an accent, and then we gotta Americanize that later on, and then bring you back in consistently and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, your accent. It has to say the same. Like, there's so much character development that had to be done for Black Panther in this movie, and it was great. Same thing for Spider-Man, obviously,
Yeah.
but because Spider-Man we've seen so many times on screen, it was less of a big deal than Black Panther, because I'm like, we'd never seen Black Panther on screen.
Yeah.
And that is like a wildly new thing. Like I was so excited for that, more so than Spider-Man. But of course, what they gave us for Spider-Man was like, I'm down with this kid. He is a geeky kid, and I like it.
It's great.
Yeah.
What else? Well, I mean, we can get to it now. I think so. During the Avengers Age of Ultron, which I know has gone out by this
Yes.
point, I said I never cared about Vision except for this movie, and then obviously WandaVision. And what I care about this is you're supposed to think that there's a couple of key characters who abandon what they think is the right thing for a love person. There's
Yep.
Steve, very obviously, and I think Vision, very obviously. We had an exchange on text a while ago where you were like, I don't see it, but I was
I
wondering
see
if
it
you
this
see
time.
it now.
I see it now, because even the small subtle things is like when one is like, they're afraid, like they're this, they're this, they're this. And it's like, who would, and then Vision's like the only one that just turns to her immediately, is like, I will protect you. And like the things you point out about like, oh, he's trying to learn human behavior things. And then he's like, but the door was open. Like that doesn't that mean the same thing?
I'm simply talking about when he
like,
shot War Machine out of the sky. I'm saying he did that because War Machine hurt Wanda.
yes.
I think there's a beat. It doesn't happen all together, which is kind of what I like about the movie, that it's
Right.
not like a one-to-one. Like you see Wanda get hurt, you see Vision see that, you see Vision go like, I'm shooting him. There's some time that passes, but he goes to Wanda's aid, and then when he's asked
Yep.
to take Falcon out of the sky, he assesses the situation, and his beam was nowhere near hitting Falcon, nowhere near hitting Captain America's ship. He just took out War Machine's arc reactor so that he would just drop out of the sky. And I was like, wow, that is.
Well, hold on. That's where but that's because, and you're saying that's because War Machine took it to Wanda during the fight, right?
Yes.
So my thing is this: like when I rewatched that, it's so highly debatable. Sam this like barrel thing to dodge Vision and Tony. Don't they say something like, I miscalculated, and then Tony was like, I didn't think that was possible, and he said like, me neither.
And then they stay on his face as he's thinking about why he just lied. He is taking out aggression on his own teammate because his own teammate took out his girlfriend. That is part of the movie, is that like, how like are you willing to stick to what you think is the right thing? And Vision is like, oh shit, I think I'm a bit more human than I anticipated. Because to him, the right thing to do is to have accountability, sign these Sokovia Accords. He's on a team with someone who still thinks that that was the right thing to do, even after getting shot out of the sky and losing the ability to walk on his own. So he took out someone who is the most aligned with him. Because even Iron Man's kind of just like, I just want to not feel guilty. I'm not even, this isn't really about accountability. This is for me to be able to pass the buck and be like, well, they said we could do it, or they said we can't do it. The only person that feels as staunchly about these accords as Vision is War Machine, and he took him out just because War Machine hit Wanda with the sound waves during that fight.
I do agree with you. War Machine and him are like most providing the most logical arguments towards it, versus Tony is just like personally invested, personally guilty, right? Like, and
I love Tony in this, but I think Tony's so good in this, especially when he's like, I don't care, he killed my mom. I'm like, nice, that's the realest thing you've ever said. But I think Vision,
I think back to what you're saying about Vision, and I think back to the fact that he's Jarvis and Tony and Bruce, and obviously to me, I'm like, okay, well, that personality that is Tony, the small minute aspect, if it was responsible for taking down War Machine, which I still think is debatable, I can definitely see that of being his characteristic or personality trait, being like, okay, you could have devastating outcomes. The thing that's crazy to me in that, like rewatching the whole thing, when Falcon lands and just genuinely is like, hey, truce, I'm not fighting anymore, like, I'm so sorry this happened. It wasn't because he ducked out of the thing. What was he supposed to do? Take the hit and die himself? So
I still
it's one of those things where I'm like, Tony just shot him.
Yeah, but he ducked, but it wasn't going to hit him. I could already see it wasn't going to hit him. If you look at the trajectory, it wasn't going to hit him. I'm not saying he should have just stayed to look cool. Yeah, he definitely ducked if someone's shooting it, or you see a shot coming at you, but that wasn't aimed at him. And I think, that is Tony being like, fuck you. I mean, they're not on the same side, but it is still like a fuck you, get out of my face right now. I'm dealing with my friend being injured. Like, this isn't about anything right now but my friend. Yeah I'm not here to like make you feel better or like engage with you right now. So I love him just blasting him, and not even like, it's not a quip moment. It does, like, it's not like when Hulk hits Thor in Avengers. It's fuck out of it right now. I'm not gonna say it from me. Just get away from me. I think it's great. But I think that's the only thing that's interesting to me about Vision in that, is that he didn't miscalculate. He made a very conscious decision. The whole fight is showing how precise he is. He made a decision once he got rattled by the woman he loves. I don't really know why, but he does, and I just go with it. The woman he loves was hurt. He's in a position to take out the person who did it, and he takes that opportunity. He regrets it later, but it doesn't mean he didn't do it fully well knowing what he was doing.
It's true. I still have to watch it again to see it, that because I still don't see the fact that it was purposeful, but I do see more of him being like abandoning everything even just in dialogue.
Yeah, I think it's
the idea of like what. Sorry, go on. Sorry, go on.
no, you can go. That's fine.
I think the idea of like in that debate, like the idea with Vision being like, this is staunchly, we have to do this. This is the outcome kind of thing. And then Wanda being like, well, what if I don't do it? They'll come to get me. And then it's like, well, I'll protect you. So he's just like contradicted himself. It's like, well, yeah, you would be accepted. Like he would rationally be, if you're really that robotic, be like, well, those are the consequences of your action. And yes, they will. But the court is basically like told them, like, well, you don't have to sign the accords. You could just retire and then that's it. Which is what Steve accepted to do, which is what Wanda would have accepted to do if she didn't sign either. But like,
I don't think Steve
the idea of
I'm
like him just
retire.
abandoning it.
I don't think Steve or Wanda were accepting I'm just going to retire. I think.
Well, he's accepting I'm not going to sign it. So
yeah.
I mean,
but he's like, I'm still going to do what I need to do.
Yes, but he's exactly. But I mean,
and I don't think I don't think it's that much of a contradiction to say I'll protect you, because you already see what protection looks like in that realm with Tony making all these backroom deals to be like, okay, yeah, we've got them detained. I'm going to lessen the consequences for what they did. We can have amendments written so that like he says like, yeah, just sign this now. That way, everything you did is legal. You're going to be out. It's going to be fine. We'll make all these amendments so that we can do what we want to do. I think that is that's the spirit of what Vision means when he says I'll protect you. It's not like I'll stop them from taking you away. I think he's like, it will be in an instance where, yeah, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. I'm still going to make it so that you don't feel the full wrath of people.
I see what you mean.
Like Tony is doing it.
I'll give you a pillow or something like that if you're in a chance.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, I think that is the idea. He thinks that like you're going to be detained because that's what this is, but I'll still do things to help you out and protect you.
Yeah, I guess he does show that when he's like, basically having Wanda in the Avengers facility being like, no, I've just keep you here to avoid further PR issues or whatever. But the idea is like, hey, yeah, I am technically keeping you here, but doesn't mean I can't cook for you. I
think that is the spirit of what he's saying, is you're not going to have your freedom, but you'll have me here and I'm going to make things better for you.
Yeah. Toxic codependency. Love it.
I get I'm everything to do with what he's willing to do mental gymnastics about for Wanda is interesting to me. I think that is interesting. Once they get into Infinity War, and it's like, oh, they just love each other. I'm kind of like, I'm not interested anymore. But in this movie, to your point about the toxic codependency, that is all that stuff that isn't just the logical robot brain and is like, he's getting kind of messy with this stuff, is interesting to me because it's showing that he is evolving in that way.
He's growing up. He's going through his pubertal years.
Yeah,
robots.
It's less academic now. So like he can start the movie being like, well, our very presence encourages like confrontation and whatever. But then you realize the more you're sitting with this character, it's like he's not that altruistic though, because like he's going to shoot out someone who's fighting shoulder to shoulder with him. He'll take that person out of the sky. He is willing to lie to Tony and be like, oh yeah, I had a miscalculation, and then like sit with that. There's a lot of stuff that he's willing to do because he wants to. We're not even talking about the like messy stuff he's doing to Wanda in that scene about like trying to like gaslight her for a bit and then flat out just being like, I'm not letting you leave, and like trying to fight about it. All of that is because he's trying to like maintain this relationship with someone that I never got the sense communicated that she felt the same way about him. Seems like he built something up.
Yeah, and I guess that's how crushes work, right? They
Yeah.
usually are one-sided first, but like
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
saying
it,
like,
it-
oh, I can't believe they got together. Like I've read the comics. I know it's just
right.
I like
I'm not
that
saying
they
that.
portrayed it that way. I like that they portrayed it that it's kind of like he had an idea and he wanted to like bring that to fruition.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, who are we to say like, yeah? How do we have what are clear signals of interest from one robotic being to a human being? Like, how does that get expressed? I don't know.
Well, it's just that the movie didn't show it. It's not that I
Yeah.
was like, hey, come on, he didn't read the signs.
Yeah.
This isn't me being like, wow, he just bullied her into a relationship. This is me saying he acted on a desire. And I think that's more interesting than the other stuff we've seen him do up until WandaVision.
Fair. Yeah.
So yeah, that is my vision piece. It's I think everyone's operating the best they can in this movie. Like I really do like Natasha being like, yeah, I want us to be a family, but also like I'm gonna take out Black Panther so that Steve can get away. I don't really like that's where my thing about the Sokovia Accords end, where they limit Steve's ability to do what he needs to do.
Yeah. Every character I think is dialed up to 11 in this movie.
Yeah.
Every character, it's so good. Every bit of screen time doesn't lag. It just goes. It's just right off the bat too. It just gets going, right? That's one of my favorite things about like Empire Strikes Back is like you have action and then it lulls in the middle and then you have it picks up again, as opposed to where it's like lull and then picks up in the action, lull and then action again. That sequencing is so good, and even for them to make an Empire reference within this movie is just so meta to me. I'm like, this is hilarious. I'm like, this is paced exactly like Empire. It's so great. It's such a fun movie. I think one of the things that I don't know what your comments or criticisms are about this or your thoughts, but there is a criticism that like, oh, Crossbones was thrown away in the first scene. Do you feel like his character was done to service, or like how do you feel about that?
No,
Like
because I don't care about Crossbones. I thought he was used really well.
Cool.
I was genuinely like, he might kill Cap. I don't even know what they're gonna do for the rest of the movie, but like this is his third movie. I know, I mean, obviously intellectually I understand you're not killing the title character in their first big scene, but
plot armor.
The way it didn't even feel like plot armor though. Like he took his beating, and then you're just like, yeah, he's also a good fighter, so he was able to dismantle him. And you also can understand like Crossbones is way more emotionally invested in this fight, so he might not be able to like pace himself the way he needs to. And also Cap has a team around him to help him, including Wanda, who ultimately helps him. So it was just like, I didn't, in the moment, obviously not this time rewatching it, but when I first watched it, I was like, they could really do something to Cap right here. Like they could take him out, especially in a post, and not saying I like this, but like Dark Knight Rises, where there was like, oh yeah, I guess they really did break his back in the middle of the movie instead of the beginning when they should have. But like they are going to sideline the guy. I was like, they could sideline him here. Like this could be, I believed, because it was Crossbones and not just a new villain, like this guy could take him out right now. Like this could happen. I'm glad the way it worked. And he came back in Endgame. I know it's a alternate thing, but it's just like, that actor is fine. And I don't know so many, obviously you've heard this, but I don't know too many like hardcore Crossbone fans that are like, come on man, like we need to see this arc from him.
Yeah, I knew a lot of people that were, I wouldn't say a lot, but I knew a few vocal people that were very upset about that. They really like Crossbones. I don't know for what reason, but
I mean, isn't he kills Cap in the comic run, doesn't he? Like, but with a bullet, not with the gauntlets he had. But
I think so. But I'm like, be real. Are we really gonna get that version on screen? No,
that's
we're
what
not.
I'm saying.
Like,
You got what you were gonna get out of
yeah.
him.
It's just
And then
like,
you got bonus
okay,
material later.
yeah, and if he didn't die there, we're stuck in the situation of like, oh, when's he going to come back? And he's going to come back in a smaller capacity because that means he's going to come back as a part of a fight, and that's it.
Mhm.
Like he's not going to have his own story run. So I don't get what people wanted more from Crossbones, to be perfectly honest. He was more interesting before he put on the suit, because then it's just like, okay, there's tension, there's competition, there's
Yeah.
all these kind of things.
I
To
still
me,
liked
I'm
him
just
in
like,
this movie. I was still like, yeah, nice.
yeah, but
but I guess he's not a character that has like this full arc, like what we were saying. But that makes sense. He's not
Yeah.
a hero. He's not a protagonist in the movie.
Mhm. Plus, he was just like, he was. It seemed like the mission that he was doing was just a mercenary mission, and he just literally wanted a suicide revenge thing.
Yeah, he
didn't
said, "I'm not
care.
coming
He's just
back."
like, I
When
want
they're like, "All right,
yeah,
where are we gonna
I'm
meet
not coming
me?"
back with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He
the guy
figured
who
he
played
was either
Thanos
going to
in
die.
Avengers.
Yeah. He figured he was going to either die or he was going to get captured. Like he had no
Yeah.
plan to like actually return, right? So it's just like, how do you finish writing that? It's not interesting. That's literally it. His story's over.
And it still works for me, like in terms
Yeah.
of watching characters either stick to what they think is the right thing, which for him
Mhm.
is, we got to get rid of Cap.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, he was willing. He's like, you're coming with me. He didn't
Mhm.
try to like, I'll play. And the storytelling in the fight was great too. Just the way he throws the bomb to
Mhm.
get rid of Cap's shield, and like he tries to dismantle Cap, and then Cap actually dismantles him by taking off the gauntlets and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's really well done.
I agree. That was the best way we could have hoped for. It's just, I mean, it's the pacing of the movie. It opened off strong, it opened up big, and that character's done. There's no point in having him back.
I agree. Who else? I don't know who we haven't talked about. I guess I'm not doing a lot of Black Panther talk because we're gonna hit that movie at some point,
Right.
But I think it was a great introduction. We've already said
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Bucky is great.
Oh,
yeah.
one thing too, I remember seeing. So you remember how like when we watched Hawkeye, there was the Kate Bishop and Yelena fight scene where it was like panning across the thing.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, they did a version of it here too. I was like, that's cool. I didn't realize that. Like, because Steven and Iron Man, they like just fought through
Right. Yeah.
like basically a similar, very, very similar sequence. Obviously, different fight kind of dynamics, but like very cool shots and all that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
The one thing I always feel something about is when Secretary Ross is kind of like, do you even know? Like, he's pointing out all the mistakes they made, and I'm like, I see you didn't put in Harlem where you unleashed the abomination and destroyed Harlem. Like, I noticed he didn't say that. Or when he was like, if I lost track of a couple of it, and like, isn't your whole thing that you're tracking down the Hulk? Like, you lost Hulk too. Then they didn't just lose Hulk. They're probably just not telling you where he
you
is.
literally lost Hulk.
Yeah.
And then not
I
only
wish
that,
someone
you
pushed
lost
back, but I know
but
that's
then he appeared. And you couldn't find him during the time he was on the Avengers. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
I know it's a detraction, but I wish someone pushed back. Like,
Mm,
yeah, I mean, you did lose the Hulk though.
yes, they did.
That's the whole push of the first. Incredible Hulk. Yeah, that is the first MCU Hulk movie. That's the whole thing. Is he lost him and he's trying to find him.
Yeah, because they try to forget about the Eric Bana one.
And then, well, I mean,
Only
Eric Bana
Eric
wasn't part of that.
Yeah, it was just a standalone, and and then the Edward Norton one is like, oh yeah, it's the cousin that we don't want to think about, but
yeah,
it's
I was
there.
just like, you did lose the Hulk, and now you're Secretary of State. So I don't like the fact that you're really leaning into the whole. Well, you don't know where Thor and Hulk is. Kind of like, yeah, that seemed to work out just fine for you.
Yeah, it was like, it's a good shut up point, but if you dig deeper into it, you're like, wait, hold up.
Yeah.
It's still a valid point. It's still a very valid point.
I guess what I'm saying is, it's a valid point if anyone but him says it, because his whole point was, if I had misplaced something, I would get in trouble. I'm like, but you didn't. You got promoted.
You not only did you do that exact same thing, you got promoted.
And
with
not
more
only,
power.
and you
Like,
also
come
did
on.
what they did in terms of destroying a city while fighting. You sent the Abomination in to Harlem, and then sent the Hulk in again. Like you sent both of them in there.
to destroy Young Street, Harlem.
Yeah, Young Street.
That is funny.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
God.
that's the only time I'm like, I wish someone said something, but it still
Yeah.
emotionally plays that they're already beat up at that point. They already feel bad enough. It's just I'm like, I just wish it was anyone.
I
But
feel
him
like
that
if
was said that.
Hawkeye was in that scene, maybe. Yeah, but if Hawkeye was in that scene, maybe he would have said
Maybe he
something.
would
I don't
have,
know,
yeah.
but like, yeah, you're right though. The way they wrote that, I'm like, yeah, maybe it shouldn't have been him
Yeah,
that was delivering that speech.
like if it was Everett Ross or
Yeah,
like
it's
whatever the Martin Freeman character, I don't know what his role. Like if he said it, I'm like, well, I don't know what you have or haven't done, so I guess yeah, that's a good point. But it's
Yeah.
just like I know that this guy fucked up, so it's just weird that he gets to get that line off.
Yeah, it's an undercut for his own thing, but for sure. But yeah, Sharon Carter
Yeah,
in this.
I mean
Do you get the
retroactively, it's not
sense-
great, but in the movie, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's just because then you're like, well, next time you see her, she's power broker, and it's weird. But like
right.
for this movie, I can't fault them. Like it seems to come to like the logical conclusion of everything, and
Mhm.
Steve finding out that that's the love of his life's niece, and even being like, did you tell her? And it's like, well, I don't want one more secret for her to keep. I just left it alone, and
Yeah.
as in keeping the secret of who she is or whatever. Like I just didn't tell her. I didn't want to bother her with that.
Mhm.
I like how that all plays out.
Mhm. Yeah,
This is whatever. I don't care. Like I've I've been a big Steve and Peggy fan, so I was
Yep.
kind of just like, yeah, I know there's a comic line where this happens, so I guess they just felt like it works. But I'm just like, nah. This
Well,
is more a goodbye kiss for me. I don't feel like that really meant anything.
yeah, he kept it in the family.
Yeah.
Oh, oh God, that is wrong. Yeah, the knowing that she turns into the power broker is just like, but I'm like, right, she did commit a felony. She stole the
Yeah,
stuff evidence out of
she got screwed over. Yeah.
she's got screwed over to help them, and like, yeah, like Cap was like, they're gonna be coming after you. Yeah, oh right, you're literally on the run, and we just don't see your character for
Mhm.
like 5 years, and yeah, you've had to survive. That was, it's setting up a lot of like things that we just never at the time really consider what that consequence was, and then like, oh, you
Exactly.
turned into the power broker. I'm like, that's weird, especially the way the series tracks the power
Who
broker
but
too.
yeah,
It's just like
that was sloppy execution, but still,
yes,
it didn't really affect how I feel about this movie.
Yeah.
It was just more like I
mm,
because I really like Zemo as a villain. I think we covered that the first time we did this.
oh yeah,
And
so great.
whenever this comes out, it will come out after our revisit of Batman versus Superman. And I feel like they had the same plan, Zemo and
Yep.
Lex, and this was just a better executed in terms of the actual character executing, but
Mhm.
also how it was written out so that you understand what's going on.
Even how it was shown to you, like showing
that's what I
the
mean.
EMP device and all that kind of stuff. With the Lex stuff, it's just you have to think about it way too much.
Well, I
the
guess
only
in
thing
the
that's
extended cut,
yeah.
they show you exactly what
Yes.
he's doing, but
Mhm.
that's not the theatrical version. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
I,
and you and
whatever.
I keep saying like, why isn't the extended theatrical? The extended is just coherent as a movie. It's long, but it's coherent, and
Yeah.
the
Well,
theatrical is not. It's
I
just
think
like
we just realized Zach
Snyder,
the best storyteller.
Yeah,
I
he's got
think-
limitations.
Yeah, he's very good visually, but if you can't, and I don't mean this because of like some arbitrary 3 hour, 4 hour thing. It's just if you don't know how to cut your movie so that it makes sense in the time, then that is an issue. Like you can't
Mhm.
just be like, oh, sorry, just watch this, just watch the version where I didn't cut anything. Like you should still be able to know how to cut around so that the essence and spirit of what you were trying to get across still plays at
Yep.
it was still like 2.5 hours. It's not like it went from an hour 50 to 3 hours. It was like a 20-minute additional stuff, but it makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yep.
So it
Absolutely.
just meant, like,
Yeah,
you
you're
didn't
right.
know how to cut.
Yeah, we are. This movie is such a better successful comparison to what
Well, I mean,
Justice. No, not
we've talked
just
to
Batman versus Superman is trying to
but we
establish.
talked about it,
for
right?
sure.
Like, that movie tried to rush to the end, whereas at least we know we've seen
True.
Steve and Tony, like,
Mhm.
since Avengers, really disagree on some stuff and then
Yeah.
still be able to come together. And then it's what I love about this movie. I keep saying that, but it's true. I love a lot about this movie is that it all comes down to, and in the end, Steve, you still lied to me. Like, even
Mhm.
up to me asking you, did you know he killed my mom? And him be like, oh, I didn't know. Sam's like, don't bullshit me. Did you know? And he's like, yeah, I knew. Like,
Yeah.
that moment's like, well, then fuck this. I'm coming after you. Because, like,
Yeah.
not having that trust, it was like, we can disagree because I trust that we're on the same page about stuff ultimately. Like,
Mhm.
even in Age of Ultron, it's like, you can disagree with me for making Ultron, but we both agree that this world needs protecting and we're going to do what we need to do for
Right.
that. And the whole, hey, Tony, we need to do this together and we'll lose together, we'll do all this together, which comes back in Endgame when he's like, you lied about that. But this moment right here where he's just like, oh, so you'll lie to me for Bucky.
Yeah.
That's, then all bets are off. And I think that's so well done that it didn't end up in the big smash down with all these 5 Winter Soldiers that we don't really care about. It was like, no, it really came down to 2 friends, and one of them realized, oh, I trusted you more than I should have.
Right.
You had, like, and I like that Steve had, I mean, I think it does play into the whole, like, yeah, you know, I'll say sorry. We'll see if his actions change, but that he's like, I was being selfish. I thought I was sparing you, and I realized I just didn't want to have to deal with it. So I'm sorry about that. Like,
I love that. I love
Yeah.
when he says that. I'm like, yes, that when people withhold information with that, like hard information like that, I'm like, that's all you're really doing.
mhm,
You're not sparing anyone but yourself.
yes.
A hard conversation or an uncomfortable conversation, like that is just the reality of life.
So I like how personal it all becomes, because
Yeah.
I know that in the comics it's this big thing where everybody is drawn in, and I'm like, this
Mhm.
works. There's still a lot of characters coming in and out, but it's like, it still feels intimate in the sense that and they did a good job of, like, laying the seed work. They show you the footage a bunch of times. You know that his parents had to leave at around a certain time, and it's just kind of like, as soon as he goes, I know this road, you're like, oh my god. Like, it not because maybe someone figured it out before, but just what I like about these movies is how they execute the characters actually living those moments. So it's not about, like, oh, whatever, we knew they were going to get dusted. It's, well, watch what happens to Okoye when Black Panther dusts. Like, watch how that makes her feel. Watch what happens as Peter is realizing he's going to get dusted. Like, you still have to live in those moments, and I think that's really well done. Just the same way you live in that moment of, like, it really does. I feel really bad for Tony when it's like, yeah, like, he's realizing, oh my goodness, I'm about to watch my parents die. Oh my goodness, it's this guy standing right next to me that I just was willing to patch things up with. Oh my goodness, the guy I thought was my friend knew about this already and kept it from me. In a movie where you already had to watch and be like, oh my goodness, they still put Pepper stuff on the teleprompter, and we're not together. And, like, he's just taking all these hits, and I really feel for him when he goes, you're gonna come with us because it's us asking. And just he's like, I'm done being quippy, I'm done. It's like, dude, what, like, doesn't this matter to you? Doesn't the fact that it's us asking mean anything to you? And then getting the final nail in the coffin of, like, no, none of it does, because it doesn't really jive with his whole Bucky thing.
Yeah, it is. You get that sensation, you get that frustration from Tony, right? You're like, why isn't my loyalty being rewarded? We did this together. We were this, and for him, it's very personal too. Because I just thought about this fact. It's not only did Cap fight alongside me, you fought alongside my father in World War II too. Like, you know, like, you had a relation. Like, you didn't just. You were very okay watching your friend
kill your friend.
another one of your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, what the hell? This is it's a shittier thing that Cap does, right? Of all his like shining glory stuff, that was a shittier thing for sure.
Yeah. To be clear, I'm still on Team Cap in terms of why he didn't want to sign the Accords. But I like that they're showing them be messy. It's not
Yes.
that I'm like, oh, I'm Team Cap because he did all the right things. It's more like ideologically I agree with him, and I like that he had unlike Age of Ultron, he's got this very clear thing of like genuinely everything goes out the window if you mention Bucky. The same way he's fighting Crossbones, and all he had to say was Bucky, and that completely changes his demeanor.
Yep. It just snaps him right out of it. And
Yeah.
and like I remember him and Wanda consoling each other after that fight. It's like it was on both of us kind of deal. Like it and they're both like, yep, we accept that. Because I'm like, yeah, if he didn't say Bucky, you would have recognized what he was actually starting to do, which is suicide mission, blow you up, right? And then Wanda was there but couldn't think the whole thing through properly. So
yeah, she's new to it.
She's new. She's 20 years old in this.
Yeah.
She's a freaking teenager. Like she's on par with like the same maturity level that Spider-Man would be.
Yeah. So I think
give or take a few years.
The movie does just a great job of taking you through characters' decisions and their mentality in these moments. So that's why it still remains my favorite. I think there's so much there, as you said, like just as we continue to watch new content come out, it still ties into this because it's such a fundamental like paradigm shift that the Avengers broke up.
Yeah, it's at the time we were like grieving the fact that does this mean we're going to get another Avengers movie, like all this kind of stuff. But then the reality of all the little blueprint things that this movie actually sets up, Captain America and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, it just God, the Black Panther, like this sets up so many fundamental things, and then it remains fundamentally its own movie and its own identity. It's just so damned impressive. I always forget this too, but it opens off phase 3, doesn't it? It opens off a phase. It doesn't cap off a phase. It's crazy to think that we opened up a phase with the Avengers being disassembled like this.
Yeah, I think the other thing, when you said personally, being just a unique movie is like it's still Steve's story despite all of these people being in there. It is still it's his story, it's his decision that's driving all of this, and I like that it does feel like part of the Cap trilogy. It doesn't feel like, I mean, yes, people call it Avengers 2.5 or whatever, but it is so tied to Captain America and what he is going for that it just feels like a good use of everybody else joining in on one of his stories. And as I said, it doesn't just wrap up and then we go back to status quo. It just fundamentally changes how all of these characters are going to move forward.
And I like how your comment of like, we're now in comic book territory. People are just showing up now, as opposed to like, phase 1 and 2 is like, okay, we have to establish them in their own franchise. We have to know who these people are before they start interacting with people. And once they start interacting, it's a big scene and all this kind of stuff where it's like, no, we're literally like introducing 2 new people. We're bringing other people in from different franchises. We're bringing people out of retirement here. It's just like, this is a genuine comic book movie where people just start showing up. It's great. It is fantastic. And I love it.
All right, let's rate this movie. It will be no surprise to anybody, I'm still giving this movie a 10.
Yeah, I'm doing a 9.5 here.
Excellent.
It still definitely sits at the top of the tier list for the MCU movies for sure. Such a good movie. Can't praise it enough.
Yeah. A good old 10 for me, good old 9.5 from you.
Yep.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows such as Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find our show, the shows I mentioned. You'll find more than that. So it's going to be a good time. And if you want to hear older episodes, like the first time we ever talked about Civil War, then go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. And our Twitter is at TDS Spoiled. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We're on all sorts of podcast places, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So if we're not where you want us to be, hit us up on Twitter or email. If we are, please rate, review, and share with your friends, as well as subscribe. That's it. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.